The hall was silent, broken only by the sound of the commander's heavy breathing as he lay defeated on the floor. The human stood tall, his armor glowing softly, the weapon in his hand shining like fire trapped in steel. For a moment, no one moved, no one spoke. The aliens who once laughed now stared in awe and fear. But silence never lasts. Whispers grew, voices rose. Some bowed their heads, their pride shattered by what they had seen. But others, warriors with blood hot in their veins, could not accept it. A human, a weak creature, had defeated their commander. A human had worn the armor their ancestors had died trying to claim. No, one alien hissed, his reptilian eyes burning. This is a lie. This is a trick. He stepped forward, tall and covered in heavy plates of natural armor, his claws sharp like knives. Behind him, more warriors growled, their pride refusing to bend. They would not kneel. They would not bow. They would fight. The human turned his glowing eyes toward them. Calm, steady. He did not raise his weapon yet. The armor hummed with quiet power. Waiting. I do not seek your blood, the human said, his voice deep with the echo of the armor. But if you challenge me, I will not fall. The first warrior roared, leaping forward. His claws slashed through the air, aiming for the human's throat. The crowd gasped as the strike came. But the human moved like lightning, his blade flashing. One strike, clean and perfect. And the warrior fell, his weapon broken, his pride shattered. The others growled louder, their fury burning. 3 warriors leapt at once, claws and blades. Crashing down, the human spun, his armor guiding his every move. He blocked one strike, dodged another, and countered with a strike so fast the crowd could not follow. The hall shook with the sound of battle, sparks raining from every clash. One by one the warriors fell, beaten but alive. Their weapons scattered across the floor, but more came, their fury rising. They could not accept what their eyes told them. They rushed like a wave, 10, 20 at once. The human stood his ground. The armor glowed brighter, filling the hall. With light, he moved with impossible speed, every strike precise. Every movement flowing like water. The air rang with the sound of steel. Claws and fire, bodies crashed, weapons shattered. The floor cracked beneath the force. The crowd watched in silence, fear and awe mixing in their eyes. Still the warriors came, endless, their pride too strong to break. But the human fought on tireless, the armor feeding his will. He did not fight with hate. He did not kill without reason. He fought to show them, to make them see. Humans were not weak. Humans endured. Finally, the last warrior fell, his weapon clattering across the floor. The hall was filled with silence once more. Dozens of warriors lay beaten, groaning, their pride shattered, their spirits broken. The human stood alone among them, his armor glowing like a sun. He breathed heavy, but his eyes were steady. He raised his weapon high, his voice echoing. Do you still call me weak? No answer came. The crowd that once laughed now bowed their heads. Some knelt. Others pressed their claws to the floor. For the first time they saw not a fragile creature, not a joke, but a warrior chosen by something greater than all of them. Commander rose slowly, beaten but alive. His yellow eyes burned as he looked at the human. He raised one claw, and to the shock of the crowd, he bowed his head. You have proved yourself, the commander said, his voice heavy. The armor chose you, the ship obeys you, and we cannot deny you. The crowd gasped. Their commander had bowed, and with him, the last of their laughter died. The hall was filled with silence, then with whispers, not of mockery, not of weakness, but of respect, of fear, of destiny. The human lowered his weapon, his voice calm. I did not come here to be your enemy, he said. I came because you sent me to die, and I returned because I would not break. He stepped forward, the light of his armor washing over them. Now you know what humans are. The aliens looked at him with wide eyes, their pride bent into silence. Some feared him, some respected him, but none would laugh at him again outside. The ancient ship floated like a god of metal and light. Its engines roared softly, its veins pulsed with power. It was alive again, and it had a master. The galaxy would soon learn that the weakest creature they mocked was no longer weak. The human and the armor were one, and together they were unstoppable. But deep inside, the human knew this was not the end. He had won their respect. He had survived their challenge. Yet greater battles waited beyond these walls. The armor whispered in his mind, not in words but in feeling. The real war was still to come, and he would be ready. The alien station floated in the black sea of stars, its towers of metal glowing with cold light. Inside, the grand hall echoed with cruel laughter, the same laughter that had followed the human when he left. The crowd of aliens feasted and mocked, drinking and boasting. To them, the human was already dead, another fragile creature swallowed by the cursed ship. Did you see his face? One alien hissed, his scaled body shaking with laughter. He could hardly hold his breath when he stepped into the shuttle. Another slapped the table with a claw. The shadows of the ancient ship ate him alive. No bones left. The crowd roared, cups lifted, voices booming. The human's name was nothing to them, only a joke, only a story to fill their night. At the center of the hall, the commander sat in silence, his armored body still and cold, his yellow eyes glowing faint. He did not laugh like the others. He stared out the wide window at the stars, unease pulling at him. Something deep inside whispered that the story was not over. But pride kept him silent. Pride told him humans could never survive. Then the sound came, faint at first, but growing, a deep rumble like the growl of a waking beast. The laughter quieted. Heads turned toward the windows. The stars outside shifted, a shadow blocking their light. From the void, the forgotten ship emerged, alive and glowing. Its engines roared with fire. Its hull pulsed with veins of light. No longer broken, no longer dead. The ancient warship returned to life, and it carried a new master. Gasps filled the hall, voices trembled. That ship, it cannot be. It was dead for centuries. Impossible. The commander rose slowly, his claws curling tight, his voice low. Who dares awaken it? The docking bay shook as the massive ship settled. Guards rushed to their stations. Warriors prepared their weapons. Fear ran through them like fire. No warrior had ever returned from that cursed ship. Yet now it stood before them, alive, glowing. Waiting, the doors opened, and from the light, a figure walked. At first, the aliens could not see clearly. The glow of the armor was blinding, pouring from every line and curve. Then the figure stepped forward, slow and steady, the human. No longer fragile, no longer weak. He wore the ancient armor like it had been made for him. Each step shook the floor. Each movement carried power. The hall fell silent, eyes wide, mouths open. The laughter that once filled the air now choked. In their throats, one alien whispered, his voice shaking, "It cannot be." The armor chose him. Another fell to his knees, trembling. No one returned before. No one. The crowd that once mocked now stared in silence, their fear stronger than their hate. The commander stepped forward, his eyes burning. He would not show fear, not before his warriors. "You," he growled, his voice like thunder. "You were sent to die, yet you return wearing the sacred armor." The human's eyes glowed faint behind the helm, his voice steady. "You thought me weak, you thought me nothing," he said. "But the armor saw what you could not." The crowd shivered, whispers spreading like fire. The human is chosen. The armor lives again. The commander clenched his claws, pride and fury fighting inside him. "This is a trick," he roared. "No human could wield such power." He raised his blade, pointing it at the human. "Prove yourself then, or die here before us all." The hall shook with tension, warriors chanting, claws scraping, eyes wide. The human stood calm, the armor humming with power. He lifted his weapon, the blade spear, glowing with light. "I do not need to prove myself," he said. "The armor has already chosen." But the commander lunged. his massive body crashing forward. Their weapons clashed, sparks raining across the hall. The commander's strength was legendary, his strikes heavy enough to crush steel. But the human moved with impossible speed, guided by the armor. Every strike he blocked, every attack he countered. The crowd gasped as the battle unfolded. The human twisted, his blade flashing, carving sparks into the commander's armor. The commander roared in fury, striking harder, faster. But nothing broke the human, nothing bent him. Finally, the human struck. His glowing blade cut through the commander's weapon, shattering it in two. The next strike sent the commander crashing to the floor. His body broken, his pride shattered, silence filled the hall. Heavy and deep, the human stood tall, his armor glowing bright, his voice calm but sharp. "You mocked me," he said, his words echoing through the chamber. "You laughed at me. You called me weak." He raised his blade high, the light burning into every eye. "Now you see the truth. Humans do not break. Humans endure." The aliens bowed their heads. Their voices gone, their laughter dead. Some knelt, others backed away in fear. The human turned, his steps echoing. The armor hummed with power. The ship outside glowed like a second sun. The galaxy would never see humans the same again. And as he left the hall, the whispers began. Not of weakness, not of mockery, but of respect, of fear, of destiny. The human had returned, and nothing could erase what they had seen. The human walked slowly through the glowing corridors of the forgotten ship. The armor clung to his body like a second skin, each piece alive with energy. Every step he took echoed with a strange harmony, as if the ship itself walked with him. It was no longer silent, no longer a graveyard. It breathed, it pulsed, it responded to his presence. He lifted his hand and the walls glowed brighter. He thought of opening a door, and the metal shifted, sliding apart smoothly. It was not technology he controlled, it was a connection. The ship was not a machine, it was an ancient mind, and he was now its chosen voice. The bond was growing, and with it came visions. Each step brought flashes of memory that were not his own. He saw towering warriors, their armor blazing, leading armies across alien skies. He saw ships like cities moving in formation, powered by the same living energy that now filled him. He felt their triumphs, their rage, their final fall into silence. And then he felt the weight of loneliness, the centuries of waiting for someone new. The armor had endured, guarding the ship, searching for a will strong enough to merge with its own. Now it had found him, a fragile human mocked by all others. Yet his will was different, unbreakable, and that was what the armor craved. The human paused in the center of a wide hall. The air shimmered and the floor shifted. Rising into a glowing platform, he stepped onto it. And suddenly the ship's heart opened to him. The walls curved into a sphere of light. Thousands of stars displayed around him. He gasped as whole galaxies stretched before his eyes. The ship was showing him its knowledge, its maps, its secrets. It whispered of hidden worlds, of empires that had risen and died, of battles so great that stars themselves burned in their fury. The bond pulled him deeper. He was not just a pilot, not just a wearer of armor. He was now the living key to this forgotten weapon. But the bond was not without pain. Every surge of energy seared into his body. The armor pushed him, tested him, forcing him to endure. His muscles trembled. His veins burned with light. His heart pounded like thunder in his chest. At times he felt he could not breathe. At times he felt he might be consumed. But every moment of pain forged him stronger. Every trial stripped away weakness. He screamed but did not fall. The armor accepted his endurance, and their bond tightened like steel. Then came another vision, sharper than the rest. He saw the last of the alien champions, a tall warrior clad in the same armor, standing in this very chamber. The warrior's voice roared in his head. "We fell because pride blinded us. We believed strength was flesh and steel, but true strength is the will that refuses to break. You, human, carry that will, and so the armor is yours." The vision faded. leaving him breathless but certain. The armor had chosen him not by chance, but by truth. The aliens who mocked him would never understand. Their claws and scales meant nothing against the strength of a human heart. He clenched his glowing fist, and the armor hummed in answer. They were no longer two, they were one. Suddenly the ship trembled. The bond had awakened more than just knowledge. The engines deep below roared back to life. Dust and rust fell from the walls as light surged through. Every corridor, systems long dead, awoke in harmony. For centuries the ship had been silent, but now it lived again. The human could feel its heartbeat through his chest. The armor and the ship were one, and he was the core that bound them. But awakening the ship had consequences. The guardians that still slept in the shadows began to stir. Metal claws scraped the walls. Eyes of red light flared in the darkness. Dozens of machines unfolded from the ceilings and floors. Some crawled like insects, some floated like ghosts. All turned toward him, their target. The bearer of the armor. He stood tall, no fear in his eyes. The weapon in his hand glowed brighter. Reacting to his will, the guardians lunged. A storm of steel and fire. He moved like lightning, his blade cutting, his body twisting. The armor guided his every strike. Faster than thought, stronger than muscle. One guardian fell, then 3, then 5, sparks raining across the chamber. But they kept coming, endless shadows, endless claws. He fought harder, his mind merging fully with the armor. He no longer felt human and machine. He felt whole, unstoppable. When the last guardian collapsed in flames, silence fell again. The ship hummed softly. Proud of him, the armor dimmed as if whispering, "You are ready." The human looked around the glowing chamber, his chest rising and falling. He had survived the bond. He had claimed the armor. And now the ship itself bowed to him, far away, back on the alien station. The commander stood with his warriors. They laughed still, certain the human was dead. But deep in his mind, the commander felt unease. A strange weight pressed against him, as if the stars themselves had shifted. He looked into the void beyond the station windows, and for the first time he wondered, what if the human returned? The human stood inside the glowing chamber, his breath sharp and heavy. The armor now surrounded his body, and every part of it felt alive. It was not just metal, not just a machine. It was something greater, something ancient, something aware. He could feel its weight, yet it was lighter than air. He could feel its hardness, yet it moved like skin. When he lifted his arm, the armor moved with him, perfect and silent. Glowing lines ran across the surface, golden and blue, like rivers of energy. His vision changed, too. Strange symbols floated before his eyes, shifting and turning until they became clear. The armor was teaching him its language. It was not spoken with words, but burned directly into his mind. At first, the flood of knowledge was overwhelming. He fell to his knees, gripping the floor as light poured into his thoughts. Images flashed, giant warriors marching through stars, battles fought on forgotten worlds, empires rising and falling. He saw the ones who wore the armor before him, tall alien champions with strength beyond measure. But they were gone, all of them, their bones left behind in the dust of time. The armor had rejected them in the end. Yet it had chosen him, a human, the weakest of all. He struggled to stand, his breath heavy. The armor pulsed around him, almost like a heartbeat. He could feel it merging with his own body. His muscles felt stronger, his bones harder, his mind sharper. Every sense was heightened. He could see the tiniest cracks in the walls, hear the faint hum of the ship deep below. Even the thin air carried scents of dust, rust, and long-dead fires. He clenched his fists, the armor glowing brighter. For the first time in his life, he felt powerful. The chamber around him began to change. The walls lit up with symbols, flowing across the surface like rivers of light. The ship was waking, its systems alive again after centuries of silence. Panels opened, machines shifted, the ground trembled with energy. The armor had not only accepted him, it had made him the key. He was now connected to the ship itself. It moved with his will, obeying his presence. He looked around in awe, realizing the ship was no graveyard. It was alive, waiting for its chosen bearer to return. But deep inside him, doubt whispered, why him? Why a human mocked as weak and useless? Why had the armor rejected mighty alien warriors but opened itself to him? He remembered their laughter, their cruel words. Perhaps the armor saw what they could not. Perhaps it saw what humans truly were. He walked deeper into the chamber, guided by the glowing lines. A pedestal rose from the ground, carrying a weapon. Shaped like a blade and a spear at once, it pulsed with the same light as the armor, waiting for him to claim it. He reached out, fingers trembling. When his hand closed around it, the weapon responded. Energy surged through his body, his vision flared with light. The weapon and armor became one, bound to him forever. Suddenly, a sound echoed in the chamber. It was not a hum, not a whisper, but a voice. A deep, ancient voice that filled his mind. "You are chosen," it said. The human froze, his heart pounding. The voice was not in his ears, it was inside his very thoughts. "You are weak in their eyes, but strength is not in muscle, not in claw, not in fang. Strength is in survival. Strength is in will. Strength is in you." The human shivered, his grip tightening on the weapon. The voice faded, but its words burned inside him. For years he had been mocked, laughed at, treated as a joke. But now he understood his kind was different. Humans did not need natural weapons. They created them. Humans did not need thick armor. They endured without it. Humans were survivors. And that was why the armor had chosen him. He stood taller now, the glow of the armor filling the chamber. The ship trembled once more, systems awakening fully. Screens lit up, showing maps of stars and planets long forgotten. For the first time in centuries, the ancient warship had a master, and that master was a human. But as the lights spread through the ship, shadows moved. The ship was not empty, not completely. In the darkness above, mechanical creatures stirred, guardians left behind to protect the chamber. They descended, their bodies made of twisted metal, their eyes glowing red. Their claws scraped the walls as they dropped, hissing with hunger and rage. The human lifted his weapon, the armor glowing brighter. He felt no fear, not anymore. The first guardian lunged, claws aimed at his throat. But the armor reacted before he moved. His body shifted with impossible speed, his blade cutting through the machine in a single strike. Sparks exploded, metal crashed to the ground. Another guardian leapt. Two more crawled from the shadows. The chamber filled with the sound of battle, claws clashing against armor, sparks flying, steel screaming. But the human fought like never before, every movement faster, every strike harder. The armor guided him, teaching him to move, to fight, to survive. When the last guardian fell, broken and burning, silence returned. The human stood in the center, breathing heavily, but unshaken. The armor dimmed, its glow soft, as if satisfied. He looked at his hands covered in light and power. He was no longer the same man who entered this ship. The aliens had mocked him, laughed at him. But now, if they saw him, their laughter would die in their throats. The forgotten ship had given him more than power. It had given him purpose. He turned toward the dark corridor, ready to leave the chamber. The armor whispered softly, not in words, but in feeling. This was only the beginning, and far away, on the alien station, the commander sat in silence, a strange unease twisting in his chest. He did not know why, but for the first time he wondered, what if the human returned? The shuttle drifted through endless space, leaving behind the station filled with cruel laughter. The human sat alone, silent, his hands steady on the controls. In front of him stretched a black sea of stars, cold and eternal, and far ahead, hidden in the shadows, waited the ancient ship. The forgotten ship appeared slowly from the darkness. At first, it was only a shape, broken and lifeless. But as the shuttle came closer, its size became clear. It was massive, larger than any ship. he had ever seen. Its surface was scarred with age, broken metal plates hanging loose. Strange glowing cracks ran across its hull, like veins of dying light. It floated in silence, as if it were a ghost frozen in time. The human felt a chill run through him. This ship was not just abandoned, it was cursed. Many aliens had entered it before, none had returned. The stories called it a graveyard, a place where even strong warriors vanished. Now it was his turn to step inside. The aliens had sent him here to die, but he felt something else, deep in his chest. A strange pull guided him, like the ship was calling. The shuttle docked with a broken airlock. The sound of metal scraping echoed through the cabin as the hatch opened. Darkness spilled inside, heavy and cold. The human stepped forward, a small light on his wrist casting a pale glow. The air was thin, old, and carried the taste of rust and dust. Every step echoed, as if the walls themselves were listening. He walked through long corridors. The walls were covered in alien markings, symbols carved deep into the metal. He touched them gently, feeling the strange grooves. The symbols pulsed faintly, glowing. For a second before fading, it was as if the ship still breathed, even in its silence. As he moved deeper, he found broken weapons, shattered armor, bones of long-dead warriors. Their empty eye sockets seemed to follow him. Some had died fighting, their weapons still raised. Others lay twisted on the ground, as if crushed by an unseen force. The human's steps slowed, his heart heavy. Whatever killed them was still here, watching. Then he heard it, a faint hum, soft and deep, like the beating of a heart. It came from below, from the center of the ship. The human followed the sound, guided by both fear and curiosity. The corridors grew narrower, the walls closer. Strange lights flickered in the distance, glowing like stars trapped in metal. The hum grew stronger with each step. It was no longer just sound, it was inside him. Vibrating in his bones finally, he reached a chamber. It was vast, unlike anything he had seen before. The walls curved upward, covered in glowing veins of blue light. At the center floated something that stole his breath. It was the armor, ancient and perfect. Suspended in the air, it shimmered with power. A mix of metal and light, alive in its own way. Its surface shifted like liquid steel, glowing with runes he could not read. The human stepped closer, his wrist light fading as the armor's glow filled the chamber. The hum was now a voice, whispering in his mind. Not words but feelings, strength, survival, destiny. It was as if the armor knew him, as if it had been waiting. He reached out a trembling hand. The armor pulsed, reacting to his touch. The air around him shimmered, and the chamber walls lit up brighter. The bones of dead warriors lay around the chamber's edge. They had tried to take the armor, but the armor had refused them, and now, for the first time in centuries, it responded. The human froze, his heart racing. Why him? Why now? He remembered the aliens laughing, mocking his weakness. But here, in this place, their voices were gone. Only silence, only the hum, only the glow of the armor. Slowly, the armor began to open, unfolding like a flower made of steel. It revealed an empty space, shaped for a body, waiting for someone to step inside. He hesitated, fear clawing at his chest. Was this death, or was this destiny? Every story he had heard warned him, but every beat of his heart pushed him forward. The armor wanted him. It had chosen him. He took a deep breath, stepping closer. His hand touched the inside of the armor, and in that moment, he felt the ship awaken. The chamber shook, lights flashing across the walls. The hum became a roar. The ground trembled. But the armor wrapped around him, piece by piece. Cold metal pressed against his skin, then turned warm, alive, his vision filled with strange symbols and glowing patterns. He gasped as strength flooded through his body. It was like fire and lightning entering his veins. The pain was sharp, but behind it was power. The armor sealed shut, glowing brighter than the stars. The human fell to his knees, gasping, his body shaking. But then he rose, taller, stronger, his breath steady. The armor had accepted him. The ancient ship recognized him for the first time in history. A human was chosen, and far away on the alien station, the laughter of the crowd echoed still. They did not know that in the silence of a forgotten ship, the weak human they mocked had just become something else, something powerful, something dangerous, and soon the galaxy would see the truth. The great alien station floated in the darkness of space, shining like a giant jewel. Inside, thousands of beings from many worlds walked, traded, and laughed. Among them was a single human, alone, his steps slow, his eyes quiet but sharp. He felt the stares, he heard the whispers, and then came the laughter. The aliens always mocked him, they always did. Tall insectoid creatures clicked their mandibles and said he was too soft. Reptilian warriors with scales shining under the light hissed that his skin was weak. Others with glowing eyes and long arms pointed at him, calling him fragile. To them, he was nothing but a joke, a weak species that somehow walked among giants. The human said nothing. He had learned long ago that their laughter was louder when he answered. But silence made them angrier, and so they kept teasing him. "Look at this human," one alien roared, its voice echoing across the station hall. "He has no claws, no fangs, no strength, no wings, nothing. How does such a thing survive on its world?" The crowd of aliens laughed together, a deep rolling sound that filled the chamber. Some threw scraps of food at him. Others clapped their armored hands like a cruel game. The human walked forward, his face calm, but inside him a fire burned. He was not blind to their hate. He was not deaf to their laughter. He remembered Earth, his home, far away across the stars. He remembered the stories of survival, of humans who had fought with nothing but their will. But here, in this place, those stories meant nothing. Here he was the weak one, the outcast, the target of their cruel joy. Then the alien commander stepped forward. It was a massive being, twice the height of the human, with thick armor plates across its body. Its eyes glowed a cold yellow, and its deep voice cut through the laughter. "Enough," the commander said, raising one claw. "This human does not need your games. He needs a lesson." The laughter turned to a low hiss. The crowd leaned closer, waiting. The commander pointed at him with a long claw. "There is a ship, old and dead, floating beyond the safe routes. A ship of shadows and death." Murmurs spread among the aliens, fear and curiosity mixed in their voices. "The ship has been silent for centuries. Many brave warriors entered. None returned," the commander said. He turned his burning eyes on the human. "You will go there, human. You will bring back proof that you survived, or you will die like the rest." The human's heart beat faster, but his face showed no fear. He knew what this was. It was no mission. It was punishment. The aliens expected him to fail. They expected him to vanish like the others. It was a cruel game, a final joke, and he was the pawn. The crowd laughed again, louder than before. "Send the weakling," they shouted. "Let the shadows eat him." Some mimicked fear, raising their hands to their faces, pretending to scream. Others stamped their feet and chanted, "Human, human, human," as if he was a clown on stage. He clenched his fist but stayed calm. His silence was his only weapon now. He met the commander's eyes and gave a small nod. "I will go," he said simply, his voice steady. The crowd fell silent for a moment, surprised by his courage. Then the laughter returned, harsher than before. But the commander's eyes narrowed as if he had seen something the others did not. The human walked away, the sound of their cruel voices behind him. Every step he took felt heavy, but his mind was sharp. He thought of Earth again. He thought of the long history of his people. Humans had always been mocked by nature itself. They had no fangs, yet they hunted beasts with fire and tools. They had no wings, yet they crossed oceans and skies. They had no armor, yet they survived wars and storms. Humans had always been underestimated, and now, once more, history repeated. Itself, in the hangar, a small shuttle waited for him. Its surface scratched, its engines old. It was no gift. It was a trap. But he entered without hesitation. The doors closed, and the engines roared. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the station full of laughter behind. Through the window, the stars. Stretched like rivers of light, the human sat alone, his reflection looking back at him. The aliens thought this was his end, but deep in his chest, he knew this was only the beginning. A strange feeling filled him, a quiet voice whispering that destiny waited. Out there, in the dark, something was calling him. Something old, something powerful, something forgotten. And so, the mocked human flew into the unknown. The crowd of aliens still laughed behind him, but the universe was silent. Watching, waiting, the game had begun, and the human was ready.